Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight as we talk about how to live our best evolving midlife. This live speaker series is brought to you by Encore Retreats, which hosts these thought-provoking community conversations every month and leads content-rich experiential retreats around the world. I'm Jennifer Sullivan, the co-owner and memory maker with Encore Retreats, and tonight we are so excited to introduce you to Katie Fogarty. Hi, Katie. Katie is, we're so excited to have you.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Katie is an incredibly multifaceted woman, serving as the host of A Certain Age, which is an age-positive podcast that celebrates women and encourages us to age out loud and proud. She's also the creator of an Instagram community, Age Out Loud, which spotlights even more women reimagining midlife. And then corporate Katie runs the Reboot Group, which is the communications consultancy that works with clients and companies to tell better career and brand stories on LinkedIn and beyond. Katie, again, we're so grateful to have you with us tonight.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm delighted to be here.
Katie is being interviewed by my business partner, Lisa Waltuck, who's the content creator of Encore Retreats. Hi, Lisa. A couple housekeeping notes. We encourage you to ask questions, and if you would, please put them in the Q&A box rather than the chat so we can keep better track of them, and then Katie will answer them at the end of the interview. We'll also send out a recording of this session via email within the next few days. So again, put your questions in the Q&A, sit back and have fun, and without further ado, I will turn it over to Lisa and Katie.
Thanks, Jen. And thank you, Katie, so much for being here. I've told you I'm a fan. I love your podcast. And I just want to congratulate you on 3 years. That's an amazing accomplishment. And, you know, I don't know how many episodes, over almost 150, right? Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm wondering what inspired you to do your podcast and how you got there, what your path was to realizing this vision.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Jennifer alluded to it. I have a day job. I help mostly senior executive business owners and teams and organizations be better at telling their career stories. And because I'm not inexpensive, I tend to work with more senior executives. I was starting to hear this very steady drumbeat of fear around ageism from my clients. And it doesn't matter what industry you work in, everyone thinks that they're in the most ageist industry, be it, fashion or tech or, beauty. And I was hearing this every day. And then one week, I had a conversation with 2 amazing women. One is a good friend from high school who is a very storied chef in New York. And one is a woman I went to college with who at the time had 2 books on the New York Times bestseller list. And I was asking them each for a quote about an article I was writing about creative careers over 50. And they both said, I love what you're doing, but no one can know I'm over 50. And I thought, that is really crazy. These women are rock stars in their fields. If they can't admit to being over 50, like what hope does the rest of us have? And for me, that was really the sort of the cliched light bulb moment where I said, this is the conversation I want to have. I hear this fear around ageism, loss of relevancy, loss of marketability all the time. And I just don't see it in the women in my own lives. I don't see it in my clients. I see experience and lived wisdom and smarts and, just a whole host of wonderful attributes that you can only acquire when you get to a certain age. So I really launched the podcast to be part of this changing narrative, to really spotlight women who are aging out loud, who are, having very vibrant second, third, fourth, and fifth acts. And then the podcast evolved a little bit to also feature experts that give women the tools they need to thrive at this stage. Because even though we're age positive, getting to a certain age sometimes has speed bumps, menopause, aging parents, and the whole host of challenges that come along as we advance chronologically.
Well, it sounds like I was going to ask you if this was a reinvention for you, but it sounds like it was more of a mission. Like you wanted to say, here we are, this is what we're doing. I want to expose this. Which was it, do you think? or
Yeah, I
both?
think it was really, if I'm being totally honest, it was like I was looking to have fun during the pandemic. I launched the podcast. It's 6 months into the pandemic. Sometimes I joke I managed not to kill my husband, my kids, or my business, and I was exhausted and kind of strung out and really in need of a creative outlet. I mean, even 6 months in, the pandemic was really still impacting our lives. I love being in a room full of amazing women. I was only doing that over Zoom. I was missing the chance to really hang out with friends and to connect with other women. And so I launched the podcast because I wanted to do that. And I wanted to be part of changing this conversation, but the two came together. Once I started the show and started hearing all the feedback and sort of really educating myself about all the topics that were out there that I didn't know about in midlife, it really did become more of a mission about bringing information. I'm a big believer that getting to midlife means having agency over our lives and our decisions, or really wanting agency in new ways. And you can only have that with information. So the podcast has really educated me. I've learned so much from recording these 149 shows. I'm delighted to be sharing that with other people. We really had a sense of community that's sort of grown out of it. And I do believe that we need to be, I do truly believe that we need to be aging out loud in our public and personal lives, because otherwise we're never going to see a change. Ageism's never going to go away. The sort of fear of getting older is going to continue to exist unless we kind of do some myth busting about what it means to age.
You seem so passionate and bold about this subject, and I really respect that. And I think, whatever you did in your past professional life, you still had to take a risk to launch a podcast and do all the technical stuff and all the social stuff and whatever it took to make that successful. How did you get over those hurdles? And were they hurdles, or was it smooth sailing?
Yeah, no, I mean, life is never smooth sailing. Everything is bumpy. And I think it's very easy to look and say, oh my God, she's 149 shows and like people are listening in 127 countries. And that's easy for her, but I could never do that. But every time we try something new, it's hard. There's a learning curve. It takes a while to get going. And but I believe that, for any woman who's listening, and any men who are joining this evening, when you get to a certain age, you realize truly that you've survived hard things before, that you've failed, that you've learned, that you've grown, and that failure and not being, being a beginner is not the end of the world. And I truly have learned that in midlife. I got in my way when I was younger because I, sort of type A perfectionist. I wanted, I believed in perfect, not done. And I am 100% done, not perfect now. I've evolved over the years to recognize perfection is a trap. It doesn't even exist. I don't mind. I mean, I don't love making a fool of myself, but I don't mind being a learner. I don't mind being a beginner. And I don't mind asking for help. And I think that when you sort of combine all of those things, it's not as scary as it seems to take risks.
Just as you've evolved, have you seen people maybe more on your Instagram community that were either shy or introverted, but this helped them kind of make a statement or say something out loud or do something in a public way? Have you gotten any feedback around people that you've emboldened?
Yeah, I love this question. I get feedback all the time from women who've said, you've encouraged me to be more vocal and more visible about my age. You've encouraged me to share this and think about it in a new way. And I absolutely love that. And the podcast, to be clear, comes out every Monday. And I feature a different woman every single Monday, but there are no shortage of women doing incredible things in midlife. I could talk to somebody every day. I could talk to, 12 people every single day. They're incredible women doing incredible things. So I launched a sister community to the podcast, which is called Let's Age Out Loud. And you can find it over at Instagram at Let's Age Out Loud. And this is an opt-in community, right? You don't need me to say, hey, come on the podcast. You can go to that account. As a link in the bio, there's a little type form, which allows you to just enter in a few pieces of data, answer a few questions, upload a few pictures, and I create an Instagram reel that shares your story. And it's been so much fun to open this up and see people I don't even know kind of dropping in and populating it. And women are doing things like moving to different countries, which I know that you and Jennifer have done in your past. Women are launching businesses, they're reskilling, and they're leaving certain careers, becoming yoga teachers, or they're becoming podcasters, or they're writing a book, or they're launching a company. And I'm constantly knocked out by what people are up to. And reinvention, by the way, and you probably have already seen this in your own retreats, reinvention does not need to look like I'm getting a new job, I'm switching careers. Reinvention can look like reinventing your health, reinventing your sense of purpose, reinventing your fitness or your relationships. It's just reinvention is sort of looking at where you are and looking at what's coming ahead and saying, maybe I want something different. I want something new. And that's reinvention is for everyone. It's not just for somebody who wants to launch a podcast or get a new job.
And I think that just your prompts have inspired people to look into themselves a little bit. I'm going to read your prompts from your Instagram, which is like a self-reflection. Getting to midlife has taught me blank. I kick this to the curb in midlife.
Yes.
Last new thing, next new thing. As I age, I feel like I just think that if someone were to go through that exercise or see somebody else's answers, it would inspire something. It would give you some kind of burst of creativity or insight or something about yourself. So I really appreciate that you've done that. And I'm sure people have read it. I bet there are people that have read it over and over again throughout the weeks or months and then decided to put their foot forward,
I hope so. I mean, I hope that that people are feeling inspired by seeing other women, who are doing things. And I also hope that they feel a sense of connection. I would say that for all the women who've opted into this so far, one of the questions is, what have you let go of in midlife, which you just said. And I would say 9 times out of 10, women will say, I've let go of being a people pleaser, or like really worrying about what other people think of me. And I'm as happy as I am that they and I have moved past that. It does make me sad that so much time, at least in my own life at different points, was wasted, worrying about what other people's expectations were, or not being, being unwilling to really just go for your own goals and realize it and let other things get in the way. And I truly do believe that many people get to midlife and they're done with that. And that is why this is such an incredibly rich and vibrant phase of life. And pop culture gets this so wrong. It's astonishing. People, pop culture makes it seem like we're all like crying into our like, I don't know what, but just, our big tissues, that we're upset and it's terrible. And I don't mean to say that there aren't challenges, and at different times we don't feel, fearful, and, we're human. But this is a time of excitement and confidence and resilience. And, I don't know. I think it's mystifying to me how misunderstood and misrepresented this phase of life is.
I think what I have seen so much is people tapping into their own authenticity. So they, so many people, I've heard so many people who are lawyers, like former lawyer is now doing this podcast, or is now, launching this book, or is now, there are so many kind of recovering lawyers doing other things. And I think it's because they weren't tapping into what they truly wanted. They were smart, capable women. They saw that as a determined path, and they took it, and not really realizing, well, I love literature, or I love music, or I want to do this, or I want to connect with other women. I don't want to negotiate somebody's divorce. I think it's really tapping into their authentic selves and what they enjoy. And
I also think that I had a wonderful guest who came on the show, a woman named Mimi Eisen, who goes by the social media handle Hey Middle Age, and I recommend everyone go follow her. She's got like 120,000 followers. She's 60. She's an incredible dancer, incredible fitness, and she's just really a beam of light on Instagram. And when she was on my show, she talked about the fact that midlife is very clarifying because the runway is shorter. And I really appreciate this metaphor because it's true. Like, there is still time for things to take off, but you got to get going. And, you really need to, and that I think is what those lawyers that you're talking about are sensing too. It is the return is something that you either resurrect an old passion or you make time for the things you never got to. But it's in part because we're also smart enough to know, like, if not now, when? And you got to get going. So, midlife, it's not all sunshine and unicorns. Like, we have to, like, we're age positive, but we're also realists. Like, this is the time to get going. This is the time to really be intentional about how you're spending your time, your energy, where you're deriving a sense of purpose and sort of really feeling like you get to be yourself.
I love that. And we just recently talked to someone who's an expert on aging. She's a doctor. She's written a great book called Elderhood. And she was telling us the recent data that one of the fastest growing groups of entrepreneurs are women in their 70s.
Wow, I'm not surprised.
And I mean, I just think that they still have a lot of purpose. They have a lot of knowledge. They know themselves. They are almost past that point of midlife of kind of reconnecting to themselves. And they see gaps in services or whatever is being offered, and they're filling it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so, that to me, that makes so much sense too. Like, and also, I have no idea where this data comes from, but I've seen it before that sort of the happiness, the bell curve of happiness, and it goes up in your 70s and 80s too, because I don't know, you're done with some of the bullshit. I'm sorry, are we allowed to swear in the webinar? But you're done with the things that no longer serve you. And again, it's very clarifying. And so you're happy because you're focusing your time, energy, and attention on the things that really light you up and that make you feel good.
I'm also wondering about, I see you doing so many things. I know that you're a big reader. I know that's how you get some of your inspiration for your guests. You do the Instagram, you do your podcast, you have your other job, you have a family, husband, kids. Like, how are you really juggling it all? Are you constantly busy, or
you're making me feel tired? Yes, I mean, it's a lot. I will be totally candid. I work every day. I have a day job. I have the podcast. I have 3 kids, a husband. I've got a very naughty puppy. I've got a lot going on, but I enjoy most of it. I'm not going to say I enjoy every bit of it, but I get out of bed every day excited about working on the podcast. So that also helps offset the stuff that maybe is less fun, that maybe some of the scheduling or dealing with invoicing and clients and stuff. And, there's every day is a bit of a mix, but you have a lot of balls in the air. And for me, I enjoy that. Like, I like being busy. I like being creative. I was so excited this week when it was the 3rd anniversary of the show. I'm like, yay, I get to go make social assets around giveaways that I've gotten from previous sponsors. And I did, my first ever Spotify playlist. I'm making a midlife mixtape, which I'm dropping as QR codes on the Instagram and in my newsletter. And I just love stuff like that. It makes me happy. So even though, and I'm a big reader because my mom is a librarian. Oh my gosh, my phone. So sorry. Turning that off, keeping it real. We forgot to turn our ringers off. But and my dad's a huge book buying junkie. So we were raised to read, and that's something that I really enjoy spending time doing. So people often ask me, like, do you read all the books that are on the podcast? And the answer is yes, I really do. Like, I love to read. It doesn't feel like work. Yeah, I don't know, a lot going on, but I like it that way.
No, I think it's great. I love that you're inspired and that keeps you going. I mean, that's very authentic, I think.
Yeah.
Have you gotten to interview or have someone on the podcast that you've just been a big fan of? You love their book, and you've never met, and how has that chemistry developed?
Such a great question. I have to say, like, I feel like people maybe think I'm a Pollyanna, but like, I literally love every guest that comes on the show. And to be clear, like, I'm a one-woman band, basically. Like, I have an editor, Dave Goldberg, who helps me record. I record in a professional studio, but I'm the one that, oh my God, how is this? Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. I think it's because I did override. I'm gonna have to text my husband. But I'll call you later. Okay. Sorry, gang. I make all the choices. I am the host of the show. I'm the producer of the show. I put people on it that I want to talk to and spend time with. And so I really am excited to talk to all my guests. I learn something on every show. It's astonishing, particularly the doctors. I mean, the lack of information from your typical caregivers, even if they're dynamite doctors, they're busy. So you don't learn enough about menopause, cardiac health, osteoporosis, all the things that you need to be caring about when you get to perimenopause and menopause as a woman. And I just feel like I learned something on every show. So I'm always delighted to spend times, but I will say, to kind of answer your question, sort of more, maybe I'll kind of wrap it up, but I have become friends with a lot of the women who've appeared as guests on my shows, and that's very authentic. We kind of are moving in a midlife space. There's a lot of conferences and mutual, opportunities to connect in real life. And so that's been a completely unexpected pleasure. Like, I had no idea that I could make a friend over a podcast mic. That's just, I would have thought that was weird 3 years ago, but it's really been a total treat. My co-host on the show this week, my guest co-host, was a woman named Laura Friedman Williams, who wrote the memoir available, a memoir of sex and dating after marriage. And she was a guest 2.5 years ago. We've stayed in touch, and we're good friends now. I love her. And then maybe one of my favorite guests that I interviewed was OG style influencer Stacey London, who came on the show. And she, I've seen her on television, and she's just incredible. She's really warm and friendly and smart. I've gotten to meet her in real life. And I'll tell you, after the show ended and we kind of hit it off, and she said, by the way, I know you live near the city. I'm having a glamorous garage sale at my home in Brooklyn on Saturday. Do you want to come? And I was like, of course. So I showed up at her glamorous garage sale, and I bought one of her dresses. And I came home and I'm like, oh my God, I have like Stacey London's like black tie dress, like hanging in my closet, waiting for somebody to invite me somewhere. So that's been fun. I mean, just, kind of weird, fun things like that have happened. So I love all my guests.
I have to say that was one of I've listened to so many of your podcasts, but that was one of my favorites, because I thought she was so real, and you could see, you both talked about the evolution she's gone through to embrace midlife. And it was so, it didn't seem celebrity-esque. It seemed so real and so well thought out. And she sounded like she was on such a mission. I was really captivated by that episode.
She's incredible. I've seen her speak at other events, and she really, talk about, a leader in this space, and somebody who's really elevated the menopause conversation in such a profound way. Like, she really is, she is the reason why it's different today.
Yeah, that was incredible. I'm curious, we always ask for our audience, are there 3 things that they can do after listening to you that will change their lives in some way? And I'm wondering, because your guests have given you so many tips over the history of your podcast, are there any things that you have incorporated in your life that you still to this day consistently do that you can pass on to our audience?
Yes. I consistently brush my teeth standing on one leg, and I alternate back and forth, because Dr. Vonda Wright, who is an orthopedic surgeon and actually an academic researcher, she studies senior Olympians, has told me that on the show that you can continue to build muscle mass and have good musculoskeletal health well into your late 70s. But balance is one of the first things to go. And it starts to degrade actually when we're quite young, and we don't notice it until we fall over at 60s and 70s and break things. And she said, you should stand on one leg when you're stirring the pot at the stove, brushing your teeth, unloading the dishwasher, all these little hacks. And it's harder than you think. So I still do that. So that's one weird thing you can all incorporate, figure out one way of standing on one leg throughout your day. What else do I incorporate? I've actually, in full candor, I've gotten on HRT since I started the show. I have done 25 plus shows on menopause. And finally, by year 2, I'm like, what am I waiting for? I started that. That's been, a game changer for my health. That's not something that everyone necessarily wants to incorporate in their lives, but there's really a lot of new science and new thinking on it. So if anyone on this webinar is suffering from any one of the 34 symptoms of menopause, it's definitely worth finding a doctor who gets it And the way you find a doctor who gets it is you go to the National Association of Menopause Specialists, which is called NAMS, and you find a certified menopause specialist, because not every doctor is. Okay, that was only 2, but they were long, and I know we're coming up on time. So I could either come up with one more, or we could throw it open to questions. It's up to you.
Well, the questions we got are so interesting. They asked that I throw your prompts back to you. So here we
Oh.
go. You ready?
Okay, yes.
Getting to midlife has taught you what?
Getting to midlife has taught me that I am in charge of my own happiness. I can't rely on other people to do or be for me. I have to do it for myself. I have to take ownership of finding a sense of happiness and purpose. You can't buy it on Amazon, as one of my podcast guests, Sarah Milliken, the flexible neurotic, always says, you can't buy a new midlife identity on Amazon. And that's true. It's up to you.
Very true. So what have you kicked to the curb in midlife?
I would have at one point said cigarettes, but I've picked that back up again because I'm going through a very stressful period with my mother's health. So that's something that I used to be proud that I kicked to the curb, and I have to rework on that. So that's probably too honest an answer, but I would say that I have definitely kicked perfectionism to the curb. I've kicked the curb of I kicked the fear of public speaking to the curb.
Clearly. Well done.
I'm so sorry I talked about cigarettes and I've got like ringing phones. I'm just keeping it very real.
We talked about authenticity. That's what we love about you.
Yeah.
So totally fine.
Okay.
As I age, I feel.
I just did this for myself for the 3rd show, and I've said a couple of words. So as I age, I feel limitless. And as I age, my 2nd year I did this, I said intentional, because I was being very careful about how I'm spending my time. And this year I used the word lucky. I have a parent going through some health things, which is, I'm relying on some bad habits, but I feel really lucky to have my health and my family and just be doing work that I love.
That's great. And I love the practice of asking yourself that every year.
Yep.
That's a great suggestion. I also love the fact that you refer to your Spotify playlist as a mixtape. I mean,
Gen X. I'm Gen X.
Clearly, you're in your midlife. If
Yes. I'm 53, so
I'm with you, sister.
Sometimes I joke. I'm like, am I really in midlife? I'm like, am I going to make it to 106? Maybe, we'll see. But
when I say mixtape to my kids, they're like, "What is that?"
Oh my gosh, I know.
Well, Katie, thank you again for your amazing work and for sharing your time with us. I appreciate it even more after learning about how busy you are and how many balls you do have in the air. It's pretty remarkable. We sincerely appreciate it.
I am never too busy to hang out with amazing women. Thank you for the invitation.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you. It was great. Really great to have you.
Lisa's fangirling a little bit. Just we're going to be real.
Thank you again. Good night, everyone. Take care.
And thanks to everyone who did join us virtually. We appreciate your feedback. So a short 5-minute survey will pop up on your screen at the end of the webinar. We want to hear what you want to hear about. So we've incorporated that feedback into future sessions. We love doing that. And we also want to tell you about 3 things Encore events, Encore Retreats has coming up. We're hosting our Refocus, Recharge, and Recommit retreat in Warm Springs, September 6th through 10th. That's in Virginia, and we have 1 suite left. So if you are a busy, savvy woman who's craving a change or looking for a balance, a new direction, we'd love to have you join us. And then on September 13th, we're hosting our next community conversation with actually one of Katie's guests, Joy Schulman. She's the author of a great book called Walk Your Way to Better, and she's the CEO of 99 Walks, which is a really amazing organization that we look forward to telling you more about. And then finally, keeping with the theme of midlife and embracing it, we are hosting a multi-day virtual conference on how to rock the empty nest at the end of September. And we'll have 20 great speakers sharing their expertise and free resources on everything from finances to wellness to relationships everything you need to help plan and prepare for the next best phase of your life. And by popular demand, we've actually added a bonus day to that, talking about unique travel experiences. So that's one that you're not going to want to miss. So if you want to join us for any or all of these adventures, please join our mailing list or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Thanks again, everyone. We hope you have a fantastic evening.